Hello and welcome to the shop. The question I get most in the hangar is, how do I take off the wingtip tanks on my Cessna 402 BusinessLiner? And I'm going to give you that answer today. You're going to take off the wingtip tanks just like you take off the wings. The wing disassembles with 4 bolts. You got one here, one down there, and 2 stacked way in the back. And that is the spar of the wingtip, or the wing. So out on the end of the wing is the wingtip tank. This aircraft is going to be scrapped. There's a little tiny chance someone might want it for a piece of artwork, but I am in the process of getting it ready to be scrapped. So you can tell right here, this wingtip tank has a bolt right here and a bolt down there. And that basically holds the entire wingtip tank on. There is a minuscule little tiny bolt way in the back here, which kind of helps the alignment, but it's not really super duper strong. The main bolts are right there, and that's the nut side, and the bolts are on the other side. There's fuel line, there's a pressure line, there's sensors, there's navigation lights, and I've taken off the rear fairings and the front fairing. And now we're going to pull off the wingtip tank by simply removing the clamps on the fuel line, or that's the pressure side, I should say, and then the fuel lines will pull, and then we'll be able to basically take this tank off using 3 well-placed bolts. So the tools you're going to need today are pliers, wire cutters, screwdriver, and I believe it's going to be a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch nut and bolt. We're going to drop that puppy down there, and we're going to get the 1/2 inch side, and we can take off the nut because the bolt will stay in there and hold the aircraft together. So that bolt is pinched in there, nice, and I'll just take off the nut on the upper side. There's the nut. Now we'll do the same thing on the lower side. Okay, now that we've done the upper bolt, we're going to do the lower bolt. And the good news is this lower bolt is pinched, so we're not going to need to hold this other side. So we're going to go ahead and be able to pull this nut right off. We're going to keep the bolt in there holding the wingtip tank on. And there it is. And the nut is off. See? There's the nut. That's it. That's what's holding on that wingtip tank. Now we're going to head to the back. Okay, so this rear is 3/8. There it is. Got it broken free. This bolt isn't really structural. It's just for holding that tank in alignment. The 2 bolts up front are the bolts that really hold it together. Okay. And there it is. I'm going to actually save this bolt in case they decide to put the wingtip tank back on. Now it's time to clip the nav lights and unbolt or unscrew the dell clamps. I'm kind of proud of myself for being able to do this with one hand while recording on one side and taking this aircraft apart with one hand. Okay, and it looks like the feed line or the fuel line has already been removed. So once I get the lower bolt out, I'm going to go ahead and rotate the tank up so that I can get all of these other attachments taken care of. I'll get in with a driver and I'll pull out the lower. So I got the lower bolt out and I used a hammer. If it was ever going to fly again, I would never use a hammer, but it's just might be a piece of art, so I'm taking it apart. Yeah, nice enough so that they could reuse the airframe as a piece of art. But otherwise, if it was going to be scrapped, I would have already been there with a Sawzall. So now that I've got that lower bolt out, I can basically take this whole assembly and push it up and over, and that'll allow me to get to the, whoop, it just popped out, to the fuel fittings and to the wiring, which I will now cut. Reach around, get the pliers, and nav lights are cut. So I'm just basically gonna cut these because they will not be used again. And I'm gonna take out this Adele clamp right there and be back in just a moment. Got the gun, take out the clamps. We recycle everything. Take out the clamps. And even the grounding strip. Because all we want to end up with in the recycle world is aluminum. No nuts and bolts and things like that, just the aluminum. So we've got large amounts of all the lines cut. We got all the electrical wires off of there. We got all that freed up. So now all we're gonna do, you can see the two mounting points right there to hold the rear fuel tank on, and this alignment pin right here. But we're gonna take out this last bolt and we're gonna be able to remove the entire wing tank. Desperate times, kind of old for desperate measures. I'm gonna use a punch to get that bolt out, and the punch will then become the pin that holds the tank in. Okay. The last bolt is out. My punch is now holding the wing tank into place. Now, just kind of roll the wingtip tank over, and we're going to pull out the punch. All with one hand. And there it is. We're going to lift. And that is how you remove the wingtip tank from your Cessna 402.